Dogman is an incredible book series. But do you know how a tiny, innocent clone, Lil Petey, went from an abandoned kitten to a true hero, shaping the entire saga along the way? Stick around as we break down Lil Petey's evolution from the start till the end. Lil Petey first appeared in Dogman, A Tale of Two Kitties, in 2017, and his introduction changed everything. Petey, the notorious feline criminal, wanted a partner in crime, so he came up with an idea. He bought a cloning machine and used one of his whiskers to create a duplicate of himself. But instead of an identical copy, the machine produced a smaller, childlike version of Petey, Lil Petey. That's also why Petey ended up with one less whisker on one side of his face. Now, this failed experiment was a problem for Petey. Lil Petey had none of his creator's evil instincts. Instead, he was cheerful, innocent, and completely uninterested in crime. Frustrated, Petey abandoned him on the streets. Fortunately, the heroic K9 officer, Dogman, found him and took him in. But Petey didn't take long to realize he had made a mistake. Strangely, Lil Petey was like a son to him, wanting to make amends, but still hoping to turn the kitten toward his way of thinking. Petey built a robot named ADHD as a gift. He thought giving Lil Petey a powerful robot would change him, but instead of using it for mischief, Lil Petey and ADHD teamed up with Dogman to fight Flippy, a villainous cyborg fish with psychic powers. In the end, Petey got arrested again, but something was different this time. He agreed, though reluctantly, to his son's wish for him to be a better person. Later, in 2017, Dogman and Cat Kid was released. This time, while Dogman headed off to work, Lil Petey stayed home with a babysitter, who, surprisingly, wasn't suspicious at all. But there was a twist. The babysitter was actually Petey in disguise. Even though Petey had accepted that his son wanted to be good, he just couldn't help himself. He saw this as the perfect opportunity to push Lil Petey toward villainy. He had plenty of tricks up his sleeve, but convincing his son wasn't as easy as he thought. When Petey noticed that Lil Petey had removed ADHD's missile launcher, he was baffled. Lil Petey believed that friends didn't need weapons to fight each other. To make things even more unbelievable for Petey, his son had also replaced the robot's battery with a solar-powered one to help the environment. At this point, Petey had to be wondering how in the world he had created such a pure-hearted kitten. Still determined, Petey took Lil Petey outside and started teaching him tricks. His plan led them straight to a movie studio, where a Dogman film was being made. Petey's goal was to attack the actress playing reporter, Sarah Haytoff. But, once again, Lil Petey refused to follow in his father's footsteps. Instead of becoming a villain, he embraced his superhero identity. For the first time ever, Lil Petey became Cat Kid, teaming up with Dogman, who took on his own superhero form as the Bark Knight. Together, they defeated Petey, shutting down his plans and sending him back to jail. As the Dogman series continued, what started as a battle between a villain and his unexpected clone slowly turned into something much deeper, a real father-son relationship. By the time Brawl of the Wild was released in 2018, Lil Petey and Petey were no longer just opponents. Despite Petey's past, Lil Petey visited his dad in jail. No matter how many times Petey tried to push him toward villainy, Lil Petey always believed that his dad had the potential to change. And, in a way, he wasn't wrong. Petey's schemes became less about world domination and more about petty tricks, almost like a grumpy dad who couldn't fully admit he cared. By the time For Whom The Ball Rolls was released in 2019, Petey was pardoned for his crimes and finally free from prison. But the biggest change was when he and Lil Petey actually started living together. Lil Petey now had a real home with his father, but he still visited Dogman's house on the weekends. And if anyone wondered why Dogman was okay with his best friend living with a former villain, the answer was simple. Petey had really changed. He wasn't just pretending to be good to avoid trouble. He genuinely wanted to be better for his son. Unfortunately, just as things were looking up, Petey made a terrible decision. He decided to reconnect with his own father. Crud. If Petey had a rough childhood, Crud was the reason why. He was even worse than Petey had ever been, and his cruelty had left deep scars. Lil Petey, always full of hope, believed that maybe they could fix things, but Crud treated them horribly. And when they finally left his house, he proved just how rotten he was. Instead of making amends, he robbed them. taking everything they had just so he could sell it for money. Luckily, Crud didn't get away with it. He ended up getting arrested. But that didn't stop Lil Petey from believing in him. In Fetch 22, released in 2019, Lil Petey's belief in second chances was put to the ultimate test. He convinced Petey to visit Crud in cat jail, hoping it might be the first step toward making things right. But Lil Petey was wrong. Instead of trying to reconnect with his family, he used sleeping gas to knock Petey out and switch places with him. He even escaped from prison while leaving his own son behind in his place. Then, Crud kidnaps Lil Petey just to abandon him in a dumpster. This was a painful reality check for Lil Petey. Even though Lil Petey was wrong about his grandfather, it didn't change who he was. In the 2020 book, Grime and Punishment, Lil Petey once again proved that his belief in family and second chances was more than just wishful thinking. This time, his focus wasn't on changing Crud, but on helping his dad finally confront the man who had caused him so much pain. Thanks to Lil Petey's constant support, Petey found the courage to face his father head on. It wasn't just about defeating a villain. It was about standing up to the person who had made him feel worthless for most of his life. And with Lil Petey by his side, Petey did exactly that. He put an end to Crud's toxic influence, proving that he wasn't the weak, scared cat he once was. Lil Petey's journey made him a star in his own right. In the Cat Kid Comic Club series, he gathers a group of young characters to start a comic-making club. The first book in the spin-off series was released in 2020. Some of the main characters in this club include Molly the Tadpole and Flippy the Cyborg Fish. But Flippy isn't a villain anymore. Over time, he becomes one of the good guys. Alongside them, Lil Petey also mentors 22 superpowered tadpoles who originally caused trouble in Fetch 22. Somehow, Lil Petey managed to turn a group of former villains into eager students. Inspired by Dogman and Cat Kid of 2017, Lil Petey officially became a superhero, teaming up with Dogman, who transformed into the Dark Knight. In December 2024, a Dogman video game was released featuring Lil Petey as Cat Kid alongside the Dark Knight. Lil Petey may have started as a sidekick in Dogman, but his impact on the series has been undeniable. That's why it's no surprise that when the first Dogman movie hit the big screen this year, he was front and center. It all began when Petey, desperate for an assistant to help with his crimes, bought a cloning machine. But he didn't read the instructions carefully. Instead of creating a perfect copy of himself, he ended up with a smaller, innocent version, a child with no interest in villainy. That's how Lil Petey was born. Realizing he couldn't use Lil Petey for his schemes, Petey abandoned him in a cardboard box in the middle of the city. But fate had other plans. Dogman, the half-human, half-dog hero of OK City, found the kitten and decided to take him in. The movie also explores Petey's complicated past. When he discovered a picture book Lil Petey had drawn of them as a happy family, something inside him shifted. For the first time, Petey felt guilt over his actions. With Flippy, the evil telekinetic fish brought back from the dead, and a living spray accident causing buildings to come to life, chaos broke out across the city. In a surprising twist, Petey, who had spent years fighting Dogman, chose to fight alongside him instead. In a climactic moment, Lil Petey manages to convince Flippy to change his ways, showing him a comic book depicting them as friends. In an act of unexpected heroism, Dogman even sacrificed his beloved old tennis ball to save Petey from falling into lava. By the end of the movie, Petey finds himself in an unfamiliar position, being considered a hero, while he refused the title of do-gooder. It was clear he was no longer the villain he once was, and when he returned home to find his father, Grandpa, had stolen everything except Lil Petey's books, he embraced his new role as a father, agreeing to share custody of Lil Petey with Dogman. And that's the full story of Lil Petey's incredible journey in Dogman. From a simple mistake to a fan-favorite hero, he's come a long way, both in the books and on the big screen. Did we cover everything? Or is there more about Lil Petey's evolution that you love? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more fun content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.